Hello people, happy Halloween. Since it is Halloween today, I thought I would upload a kind of creepy themed video. You might remember I did one of these last year where I talked about this creepy nighttime experience I had. And so this year I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to talk about a personal scary experience. And what came to mind were my experiences working in a nursing home. So yes, disclaimer, all of these events I'm about to talk about are true and actually happened to me or somebody that I know, and I believe them to be completely paranormal. If you're into this kind of thing, then please keep watching. If not, keep your mind open. Either way, keep watching. So the first thing I want to talk about, if you're not familiar with nursing homes, care homes in general, is that they have this call bell system for residents who may need assistance with anything and everything. They can just press a button and the carers come running in asking what they need. It's very effective, and yes, I admit sometimes they can malfunction. There can be something weird in the wiring, but other times that's just not a good enough explanation. So I'm going to talk about a few experiences I've had with call bells going off when they shouldn't have been going off. And the first one I want to talk about was when I was on a night shift once. I was in the dementia wing on the first floor, and it was basically my job that night to stay on that floor to keep a watch on the residents who were on that floor, and the nurse was downstairs. I'm on this night shift. I'm sitting next to one of these dials we have on the wall that show if a call bell goes off, they show what floor and what room. So I'm sitting there waiting for a call bell to go off, and then at one point during this night shift, the call bell goes off. I look at it and it says GF Lounge, ground floor lounge. Now I'm looking at this puzzled because nobody's in the lounge. All the residents at this point are in bed. We didn't have any nighttime wanderers at this time, you know, because some residents just stay up all night. But I thought, oh, maybe one of the residents was up. It could happen because, you know, they have dementia. They forget what time of day it is. So I'm thinking, well, the nurse will be with that person because I'm supposed to stay up here until she rings for assistance. So I ignore the bell, it turns off, and then it comes on again, GF Lounge. And at this point I'm thinking, okay, maybe this time, maybe the nurse is ringing for assistance. So this time I decide to go downstairs to see if the nurse needs some help with this resident who's up. But as I go downstairs and turn towards the lounge, I see the lounge door is shut and the lights are off. So I open the lounge door and turn the light on, and nobody's in there. There's not a single resident in that room, and the call bell's going off. So I turn it off and I go to the nurse's station, which is just like a few meters away from the lounge, and I speak to her and say, the lounge call bell was going off. And she was like, oh yeah, that happens, you know. It could have been just some problem with the wiring, but it kept going off. I think it was 5 or 6 times that night GF Lounge would be ringing and there would be nobody in there. I just thought it was really strange that the call bell would go off like 5 or 6 times in the night and then it didn't again. The day staff didn't report any issue with the call bell going off, so yeah. Was it weird wiring that fixed itself in the end, or was it something else? Another really creepy thing that used to happen with the call bells was that they tended to go off in a room when a resident had just died. This happened so many times that by the end I was just used to it. I worked in this nursing home for 5 years, and by the end of it, whenever things like this happened, I would just think, oh yeah, it's so and so pressing the bell for us, you know, asking for assistance even though they have died. This would happen either when the resident had passed away but the body was still there, and even when the body had been taken away, the call bell would still go off. Like, it would only happen once or twice, but all of us thought, you know, that's just the resident who had just died ringing the bell for us, playing a trick on us or something. Yeah, that happened a lot. My second experience that I would like to talk about was again during a night shift, and again I was in the dementia wing. On the other side of the building, on the nursing side, on the first floor, there's this corner that rounds off onto another room, a storeroom and a communal bathroom. There's just this corner area. Whenever I've been on a night shift and I've walked down that corner, that bit of corridor, I always feel like I'm being watched. First couple of times I would look around because I'm thinking maybe there's a resident wandering, or a nurse or another carer maybe wandering and I just didn't see them. But there's never been anyone there, and I just eventually kind of ignored it. So I was on this night shift. This is a completely different day, but I was on night shift in the same place, and a colleague who I was quite friendly with was on the nursing side on the top floor, the first floor. And then she calls me and she sounds really panicked on the phone, and she says that she feels like there's something there, and she's in this corridor. She said she's right at the bottom of the corridor, round in this corner bit that I was talking about, and she feels like there's someone there, and she comes running up to my side of the building and she's petrified. None of the residents down there were up at that time. She had just checked on them, and the nurse was on the ground floor, so yeah, there was nobody there, but she could feel like someone was there, and I believed her because I felt this as well. My third experience is again another collection of similar things, and that is just generally feeling things walking past you or behind you. One time when I was on a day shift, this time in the dementia wing again, I am in the lounge, knelt down, talking to a resident. Picture the scene here. I'm here, the doorway as you go into the lounge is here. I'm facing a chair that's by the wall talking to a resident, and over on the other side of the lounge there is another resident and her son is visiting. So I'm talking to this resident. My camera died. Where was I? So yes, the son of the resident had got up and gone into the corridor. I presumed that he was going to talk to the nurse. I get up after talking to this resident. I look over and the son is sat there talking to his mother. I hesitate for a moment. I look around, looking all confused. He looks at me and I say, "I swear you just got up and walked behind me." And he was just like, no, I've been here the whole time. All the residents in the lounge were accounted for, so none of the residents had got up. The other carers were on break, I believe, at the time, so it wasn't any of them. And so I'm just looking around all puzzled and feeling a bit weird, because I definitely felt someone walk behind me. You know when you know when someone's walked behind you or walks beside you, there's that little bit of rush of wind. I felt that, and it was so strong that, you know, I was surprised that it wasn't actually someone walking behind me. It was actually, well, it must have been a ghost or spirit, whatever. So I had these feelings a lot, whether it be walking down the corridor, or I would sense someone leaving or entering a room. And it happened so many times that I ended up just saying hello to the ghost or presence of whatever it was, however you want to call it. You know, I'd feel someone walk beside me and I'd just go, "Oh, hello," and just think nothing of it, because it just happens so often. So the fourth one I want to talk about concerns a particular bedroom on the ground floor on the nursing side. It was room number 3 in this care home on the ground floor. My first experience with this, when we had one resident in there who had dementia and was bedbound, and I had gone in there to assist with her feeding. She could communicate, but she didn't really say a lot. She'd answer you when you spoke to her, and she'd sometimes come out with these random nonsense things. There was one time I was assisting her with her feeding, and she started talking about this little girl that was in the corner of her room. And at this point I was just like, oh, okay. I was just going along with it. I was thinking maybe she was just hallucinating, you know, that's something that happens with people with dementia, so, you know, I was just playing along with it. Later on in the day, I said to one of my colleagues about how this resident had seen this little girl in the corner of her room, bless her, you know, kind of thing. And then this colleague turns to me, all serious face, and she says, "Oh yeah, there is a little girl in that room. We had a resident in there before who said there was a little girl in that room." And then that was when I was just like, oh, right. So there actually is a little girl in that room. I kind of ignored it, you know, that was the only time I believe I heard her mention the little girl in the room. So I just kind of forgotten about it. Eventually that resident passed away and we got a gentleman in that room. There was one night he was shouting about something. I can't remember what it was, but before I was about to go home, I had my coat on and everything. I went into his room because his room is really close to the front door. I'll call him Peter. That's not his real name, but for the sake of this video, I'll call him Peter. So I go in there and I say, "Hey Pete, what's the matter? What's going on?" And then he says, "There's a little girl in my room. There's a little girl over there. Tell her to go away," or something like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was talking about this little girl that was in his room. And at this point I was just like, "You're all right, Pete. I've got to go. I'm going home now. I'm going to be late for my transport." I'm not afraid of ghosts or anything, but there's just something really weird about at least 3 residents saying that they can see a little girl in a room. And finally, the last experience I want to talk about isn't or doesn't necessarily have to be like a creepy ghost story, but it's something that happened that to this day I just cannot explain. So yeah, I'll set the story again. This was in the dementia wing again. It was a day shift and I and another colleague were assisting this lady out of bed, getting her dressed, made her bed, made sure her room was tidy as per usual. Bed is made, it has this throw on it, which is what all of the beds in the nursing home had. They had these throws that matched the curtains. So later on in the day, the nurse on duty asks me to check all the mattresses as a monthly thing that we're supposed to do in nursing homes to make sure that they're not soiled. And so I'm going around stripping all of the beds, unzipping all of the waterproof layer. If you are familiar with beds in nursing homes, you'll know what I mean. Generally checking everything to make sure it was all nice, and I had this bit of paper to tick off. I get to my resident's room, who I was talking about this morning, and on first glance everything is exactly how it was when we left that morning. No signs of anything being different. So I strip the bed and then I take a step back because the mattress, the sheet on the mattress is absolutely soaking wet, and I'm telling you it was absolutely saturated. And I'm confused because I was the person who made the bed that morning and it was absolutely not wet. It's common policy, if the bed is soiled or wet, you change it. The bed was absolutely clean and dry when I'd made the bed this morning, and now unmaking the bed is absolutely soaking wet. On instinct, I look above me to the ceiling in case there was a leakage or something, but there was no signs of leakage on the ceiling. I go to the nurse on duty and I say, can you just come to room 6 with me? He looks at it and he says, well, is the ceiling leaking? No. Is this whatever? Can't figure out what was going on, what happened here. And so he said, oh, maybe it was not his real name, maybe it was Charlie. Charlie was a lovely resident, nice, sweet man, but basically you tended to know when he was around because he'd leave a path of destruction in his wake. That's how I used to describe him anyway. I used to find it quite ironic because he had his own cleaning business. Once he'd developed dementia and moved into this care home, he just liked moving things about and turning things on their side and trying to dismantle the radiator outside of his door. He did that quite a lot, and just moving tables up and down the corridor, just random things like that. And there was one time when he had been caught tipping a jug of water over a resident. Now I can't remember if this happened before or after this event that I'm talking about, but he has been known to do that. So, you know, my nurse just says, oh, maybe it was Charlie, maybe he'd come in and done it. But then I was like, well, the bed was perfectly made. The throw was completely dry. Obviously, the duvet was wet where it was laying on the sheet. This resident, Charlie, he may have unmade the bed and tipped water on it. That I could have believed of him. But there is no way he would have made the bed again. Absolutely no way. He does not have the capacity to know how to make a bed. And there was no evidence, there was no water jug lying around. So yeah, I just spent the whole day completely and utterly puzzled about the whole thing. Obviously I changed the bed and remade it and everything, but that to this day, like I said, I just cannot explain. There's no way any resident would have done that. So yeah, they were my 5 creepy nursing home experiences. I hope you enjoyed this video and you weren't completely creeped out about it. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you have any creepy ghost stories like this that you'd like to share, then please don't hesitate to put them in the comments. That would be awesome. If you're new to my channel and you would like to see more of my videos, then why not subscribe so you don't miss another upload. Thank you all very much for watching. Happy Halloween, and I will see you next time.